Okay. So, um, as of... Oh, wait. No, it's a little further down, even. I could swear I got further than this. Ah, there we are. All right. So, what the chapter is, he did a parody, I guess you could say, of the never-ending story. Um, in Maplestory, the game, there is a town called Ludibrium. I'm not even sure how you would say that. I'm not sure where you put the accent on it or what. Ludibrium or something like that. It's kind of hard to say, but anyways, for the longest time I thought it was called Ludibrum. 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 That's what I thought it was for the longest time. But apparently that's not it. It's Ludibrium. Anyways, that's beside the point. So when I wrote this chapter, or let me back up. In Ludibrium, it is a giant city made by toys. Made of toys, made for toys. It is a whole toy city. And on either side, there are two gigantic towers. Each one, I think, is 100 stories tall. And I'm not exactly sure how it would compare to like real world height or whatnot. So I can't really say how tall it is, but to say the least, the towers on their they have like 101st floors, so they go a little taller than the city itself. But I do believe the top of those towers, they do stretch into the clouds. So they are at least that tall at their tallest points. But and then they go down and they rest on two islands on either side. But so the city is massive, massive city. But there we have, I think it's Eos Tower on the left side of the city when you're playing the game, and then you have Helios Tower, which is on the right. Helios Tower, I think you go either 2/3 or maybe even halfway down, and you come across a library where I can't remember exactly how the storyline went, but some of the books, like some of the magic of Ludibrium, had made the books come to life, and so they were like actually alive. The books themselves were alive, and the librarian there, his name was Wiz. He was tasking you with helping him collect all the characters and bringing them back into the books. When I wrote this chapter, I believe I had just finished watching The Never-Ending Story, the first one, not 2 or 3. Those don't exist. And I wanted to kind of do something similar, like a kind of a mashup between Never-Ending Story and Helios Tower of Maplestory, and that's where this chapter came in. The other thing I needed to do is at the time, what have we got? Coffee Quills, welcome to the vault. I hope you are at least mildly entertained by what you see here today. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The story that I'm working on is a fan fiction that I wrote many years ago. Still working on it to this day. So this particular one is one chapter of that. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. Clawing back. Yes. I believe I'm still playing Maplestory, actually. I believe I started playing in 2009. Just before, I think it was just after the 4th job advancement came out, and just before pirates were a thing. So I've been playing quite a long time, but some of you out there have been playing since the beta. So you have my salute. But anyways, so So let's get into editing over here. All right. Wiz asked me to come to Ludibrum because the temporal distortion caused one of the stories to come alive and somehow connected to another dimension's existence. Oh, I guess I should also mention that in this story, I also included another of way back. This was probably 2010 or 11 thereabouts. When I was posting this story to the Maplestory forums, I had put a little contest out to see who would want to have a character included in the story for all time, and one such character, I have the notes somewhere of who this character belonged to, but the character's name is Ozzy. He is he's a thief class, and he is going to be the apprentice of Olsen, the thief hero, or the thief guardian. In this story, I called him the ninja guardian, but you know, it's just how I saw it. The thieves were more closely related to ninja, and so I just called him ninja from then on. So I included Ozzy in this. This was his introduction chapter to become the apprentice to Olsen. And then just kind of moving on from there, kind of keeping on with the whole like never-ending story theme kind of going on there. All right. Lillian, I remember now. Wiz asked us to come to Ludibrium because the temporal distortion caused one of the stories to come alive and somehow connect to another dimension's existence. The rest of them, what does this say? Okay, the rest held their heads as the memories returned, each finally becoming aware of their surroundings. Now I remember. When we came to the library, one book was... Let's see. Sat on a low pedestal in the center. Okay, there we go. That's a little better, I guess. One book sat on a low pedestal in the center when we came to the library. Wiz told us that it was a book that we needed to investigate. All right, what? Wiz told us it was... Okay, I need to get rid of that. Wiz told us it was the book we needed to investigate. Then there was this bright flash of light, and then everything went dark. Okay, and everything went dark. Lillian, do you remember? Jenny called to the clouds. Alright, so you're going to see me going back and forth between, like, italic, hopefully you guys can read it along with me. What I see versus what you guys see is a little different. Here, let's go one more level up. Make it a little easier for you guys to see, hopefully. Let me move it over a little bit. There we go. Okay, now it's a little easier for you guys to read. You're going to see me going back and forth between italic and regular text. That's because Lillian here, who in this story is actually what Iran would become. Originally, Iran was a male main character with a female counterpart, but now since Iran has been made into a female main with a male counterpart. So this one here, I had Iran originally. Iran himself, the guy, he would have married this girl, Lily, who... Was it Lily? No? Lilin. That's who it was. Married this girl, Lilin, who helped him regain a lot of his battle prowess and maybe not all of his memories. And then they had a daughter, who was Lillian. who was, in the way this is all working out, is the female version of Iran. So that's how this is all working out in the story. Lillian's memory felt like it sparked and then became complete as she remembered the flash of light. A flash of light. Then something hit. And what's wrong here? Okay. Flash of light, and then being struck over the head. And passed out until she came to and began reading. Okay, so... She called at the book, but they seemed unaware of her shouting. Jenny asked. Okay, there we go. Okay, that works a little better. Oh, I guess I ought to... Coffee quills, let's see. Okay. So anyways, coffee, if you're there, there's the response. There's the typed response. I see that you're listening. At least on my end, it says you have the audio muted, so I don't know if you heard my answer before, but there is the answer now. Sorry it took me so long to actually get to it. So, Ozzy, can we hear her if she talks? Jenny asked. Ozzy only shrugged. Yes, we have Harley riders here. My master and I came here 3 months ago under the very same request. But when we ran into Akuya here... he explained... Oh, wait. Let's do this. Okay. But when we ran into Akuya here, he explained everything. Just before we were to finish our mission, my brother in training shut the book and locked us in here. Lillian shook her head in disappointment, but kept reading on. So, if you guys have been further through the book, then you can tell us what... So, if you guys have been further through the book, then you can tell us what we need to do to get out. Jenny said. Jaden... point. Hold on. I gotta go back here, because I think I missed something. Ah, okay. Yes, okay. So I think when I was editing this before, I was really, really tired, like towards the end of where I was editing, and I missed a bunch of stuff there. So just... bleh. Alright, so they did meet Akuya and Jaden. Now, those are a couple of characters that I stuck in there because they are actually related to something that happens, some background, how do we say? A background race that is, to my knowledge, only exists in this story. It's inspired by Maple. Like, I will say there are many things. I always used to put this disclaimer every time I put up a chapter. There are many things that are similar to Maplestory, and there are some things that will be inspired by Maplestory. Some are events that happen from Maplestory, and others are completely made up by yours truly. I think I still have that thing somewhere, or this thing still exists somewhere in like a Wayback Machine or something like that. We'll have to see. Okay, so yeah, Jaden and Akuya. I'll have to see if I can make their sprites again. No, he doesn't. I am the Seraphim Akuya, and this is my twin sister Jaden. Okay, so yeah, I'll have to go back and do some more editing later, but we'll just keep moving on. Okay. He explained everything. Just missed that. Okay. So if you guys, Jenny said, Jaden shook her head with anxious fear as Ozzy explained. That's not quite how it works. I could tell you, but that would warp this world. You must continue on with us coming with you while we accompany you. Okay, that sounds better. You must continue while we accompany you. Helen sighed, the hope for a quick end vanishing. All right, so where do we need to go from here? Matthew asked. Acura. No, it's not Acura, it's Akuya. Akuya pointed further south where 3 giant statues stood in the distance. Those are Solomon, Ariel in the middle, and Rex. They will look into your heart and decide whether or not you are worthy to pass on to Carter's home. This is one of 2 gates that will test you. Oh, hello. Hold on just a second. I need to go check something. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I just have a thing to check on my phone over here. Ah, I see. All right. This. Okay. It is one of 2 gates that will test you. What happens to those that don't pass? What happens to those that don't pass? Jack asked worriedly. Akuya pointed to a pile of skeletons and bodies that lay broken and battered around the statues, some covered by a thin blanket of sand. Rex and Solomon will crush you. And if they miss, then Ariel's eyes will open and reduce you to bones. You must believe in yourself to the fullest. Otherwise, you won't make it. Okay, I see. The five of them understood. Looking back to the statues. Looking back at the statues. Between them and their destination. Let's go, Olsen commanded. Walking the path before them. Through the harsh sands. Wondering if... Spent many hours playing Maplestory. Good times. Yes, many good times were had. All right. Olsen commanded, walking the path before them through the harsh sands, wondering if they would be considered worthy of passing through the gate. It is just doing editing of the story as a whole, since many years have passed and my skills have changed. Alright. Ozzy, Akuya, and Jaden quickly pulled ahead of them and made their way through the gate with ease. Easily made their way through the gate. Okay. The others, however, had doubts as they walked and ran for the then ran for the gate, trying with all they had to believe they would make it through. Slowly, Ariel's eyes began to open as they neared. Olsen, sensing the danger, dove to the left and pushed Jack out of the way. Okay. As a blast from Ariel's eyes turned the sand to glass. How are you doing this? Doing coffee? That's a blast. Oh, okay. Sensing the danger, Olsen dove to the left and pushed Jack out of the way as a blast from Ariel's eyes turned the sand to glass. Oops. Okay, he's doing well, working on writing too. Okay. What kind of story? Original or a fan fiction of some? Original. There we go. I can spell. Or something. Oops. Or something else. Run! Helen shouted as they dodged Ariel's blasts. And the heavy I can talk. Seriously, I swear I can talk. Helen shouted as they dodged Ariel's blasts and the heavy sword-like hammers hitting the ground around them. Time and time again, the ground would shake with their hits as they managed to pass Ariel's line of sight. But just as they were about to get through, Jenny tripped on a leg bone from a past warrior. From a past warrior. Okay. As she looked up, she could see Rex's heavy hammer coming down on top of her. Jenny flinched. Oops. Have a few whips I'm working on. Short story, 2 fanfic exchanges, novella, and a novel. Trying to beat back the whips with a pruner. Okay. What fandom is the fanfic from? All right. As she looked up, she could see Rex's heavy hammer coming down on top of her. Jenny flinched in fear when a sound echoed above her. Opening her eyes, she saw that Jack and... Let's see. Wind. Hurling sands against her skin. For the exchanges, I need to do 1 original fic and 1 Fallout TV show fic. Okay. Just out of curiosity, any part... Knitting Necromancers. Short story is about kitchen witches. The novella is a political satire. The novel is knitting necromancers. Knitting necromancers. I wonder. Just curious. Any particular reason are listening our stream? No, we'll leave it alone. All right. Opening her eyes, she saw that Jack and Matthew held up the heavy stone despite their feet being pushed in. Despite their feet sinking into the sand. Olsen! Jack called in a strained voice. In a flash, Olsen grabbed Jenny and was grabbed Jenny, standing next to Helen and the others past the gate. Okay, now what? Jack asked Jack as his arms began to give under their weight. Matthew growled as he began to push the rock up, screaming with a battle cry as he took the weight from Jack. All at once, he picked it up and planted both feet into Jack's chest, sending him flying back to the others just as the hammer came crashing down on top of him. "Matthew!" Lillian screamed, her hand bumping into the page. She tried to reach into the book and get to him, but only met with the page. Feeling helpless. Olsen was about to go back for Matthew when Jenny reached out and stopped him. Olsen shouted Matthew's name over and over again, trying to break free of Jenny's grasp. Repeatedly. Okay, that sounds good. Okay. Trying to escape Jenny's grasp. Okay. "Olsen, he's gone!" "No! We have to help him! He could still be alive! Matthew!" Helen shut her eyes and looked away, trying not to let her tears fall. Nonetheless, she turned to Jack. Okay, wait. She approached Olsen and put her arms around him, holding him steady until his screams subsided. Okay, hold on. Okay, so we're going to have to work on this just a little bit. Approaching Olsen and putting her arms around her, holding him steady. There we go. Ozzy will... Alright, we'll get rid of this. Lillian wiped her eyes. Feeling the loss more deeply than the others. Sure, things had been different between them ever since the incident with Alfie-Ben. But they were still very close. Wiping her eyes again, she continued to read. Despite her blurred vision from the tears. Despite her blurred vision. He would have wanted us to go on, Ginny murmured. Angrily, Olsen turned around. Olsen broke free of Helen's embrace, pushing past Jenny and Jack. Okay, there we go. And began walking through the sands, continuing south where the desert... Continuing south. The desert slowly turned into an icy blast of snow all around them, the further they went. "Carter's house is just up ahead," Akuya shouted, as they approached what appeared to be a wall made of highly polished steel or ice. Okay, so Akuya shouted as they approached what appeared to be a wall of highly polished steel or ice. That is that? No, that's just stupid. Is that it? Jack asked, trying to keep warm in the Arctic cold all around them. No. Just in the Arctic cold. It's the mirror of souls. It reflects what you fear. It reflects what you fear you are the most. What? It reflects what you see yourself as. Alright, there we go. It reflects what you see yourself as. Many have come to this point and turned away because they did not want to believe what the mirror showed them, Akuya shouted above the howling winds and blinding snow. Jack turned back to the mirror as his clothes began to frost on the edges, while the others were starting to feel the effects of the cold. Feel numb in their extremities. Helen, can you give us some heat? Jack called over the wind. Helen thought. Trying to clear the fog in her mind. Trying to clear the mental fog that was slowly setting in. With a monumental throw of her arms, her mana flowed through her body and arm. Her mana flowed as gears formed in the air and flames burst around them. Her mana flowed with a monumental throw of her arms as gears formed in the air and flames burst all around them. Instantly, the majority of the cold disappeared, and the wind calmed to a breeze. I can't keep this up for long, especially with the cold. This is cold. So whatever you're going to do, do it fast. Do it quickly. I cannot maintain this indefinitely, especially with the cold. Whatever we are going to do it quickly, she said. Jenny was the first to walk up approach the mirror and waited for whatever it was going to show her. Or whatever it would show her. Okay, that's a little better. At first, there was nothing. Then a blurry image of something came into view. At first, there was nothing, but then a blurry image of something came into view. It was her. Oh, come on. What's going on here? But before... No. Dismiss this. Alright, it was her, but before she was the guardian archer, curled up in a corner and shaking in fear. Jenny gritted her teeth and turned away from the mirror, confused. Why would she be afraid? The others took their turn in the mirror, each of them either confused or angry with their results that varied from a coward who left a friend to die in the middle of a battle, to a trader who sold them out to the Black Mage. Okay. Okay, let's see. That should be good. Akuya, Jaden, and Ozzy already knew what the mirror showed them, but looked into it anyways. Or looked into it anyway. You can't let the mirror define who you are. If you do, you will never be what you were meant. You never be what... You will never be what... Let's see. What was meant for you? No. Can't let the mirror define who you are. If you do, you will never be what you were destined for, I guess. You will never... No. Realize your potential. For a bit, the group talked amongst themselves, picking each other up from not only the loss of Matthew, and the images shown to them in the mirror. Lillian thought she could see this mirror too. And for some odd reason... Okay. Turned her gaze away from the book to the air before her, looking at the glassy object. Okay. She saw herself with Matthew laying in her lap. She saw herself with Matthew lying in her lap. Blood soaked her armor, and his sword in her hand dripped with his blood, while a wound in his chest bled profusely. Okay. Blood soaked her armor, his sword in her hand, dripping. Okay, there we go. Dripping with his blood, while a wound in his chest bled profusely. No! She screamed, reaching her hand under the cover of the book and beginning to slam it closed. Let's see. The book's cover and beginning to slam it closed. Something furry shot into the pages of the book's pages, yelping a bit as the covers hit. Lillian looked up to see Alden on his haunches, putting his paw into the book with a sad look in his eyes. Alden, you're alive, but... Alden looked back at the book and then lifted it open again, jumping down and licking his paw to try and stop the pain that was pulsing through it. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. There we go. Remember, you can't close the book. The others will be trapped in there if you do. Matthew's familiar voice said as he walked up to her in the dark, his bloodlord armored seeming to glow in the low light with his heavens... glow in the low light. Lillian slowly turned to him turned to him, and then jumped up, wrapping her strong arms around him and planting a firm kiss upon his lips before hugging him tight. Okay. She's already hugging him on his lips. Oh, and I guess I should mention here, the way I have this kind of worked out is that Lillian, she's like 6'4", and Matthew is like 5'9". So she's taller than he is by a good bit. But, you know, heck, that stuff works, you know? Some people can, well, I shouldn't say can, but there are some instances where the girl is taller than the guy, and it works. You know, I knew somebody in my own life. I actually know one of my friends. He's 5'10". His wife is like 6'3", thereabouts. Heck, they're married. They have a couple kids, so heck, it works. All right. Let's see. Okay. Before planting a firm kiss on his lips. There we go. Okay. Okay, that works a little better. I thought you were dead, Lillian cried, hugging him all the tighter. There's no time to explain right now. You must keep reading on. You must keep reading. But why me? Why couldn't you read it? Lillian asked, pulling away from him, making sure it was indeed him standing there. Okay. Alright, so we need to make this non-italic, because this is happening in the real world. It's not actually being read. Because once a person begins to read this tale, only that person can read until the very end. Okay, until the end. Otherwise, some very bad things might happen. Some terrible things. Okay. Lillian nodded, wiping her eyes, taking a breath, and sitting back down at the book. Sitting back down at the book when a cold wind blew out the candles. Blew out the candles, providing light. Providing reading light. We'll just... Matthew grabbed his mace and ignited the mana he forced through it. Flames coming to life. All right. Relighting the candles with it. Okay. Okay, now going back to the book again. They're reading again. With newfound confidence in their hearts, the group passed through the mirror at Akuya's instruction, coming to a world that at first was initially dark, and then was... Okay. And then brightened by an eerie blue light coming from deeper in a cave. Okay. Come closer, an alluring female voice called. almost as if being pulled in. They approached a pot of boiling blue potion. A beautiful woman stood behind it, dumping small pinches of herbs and other ingredients into the pot. The woman turned to them after grabbing a bottle of a strange-looking herb. Her ashen skin was mainly bare, wearing revealing her low-slung skirt amplifying her hips. Oh. I can spell. I know I can. Her violet... Wow. Her violet hair, let's see. She was mainly bare. Her low-slung skirt amplifying her hips. No, let's see. Hold on. Let's see, chat. Let me... let's see. Let me see if I can... Okay. So... this is the character that I'm trying to describe here. This is Carta the Sea Witch. She is an NPC in Maplestory, for those who remember or know. But this is who I'm trying to describe here. Nope. I guess I ought to hit the button over here so you guys can actually see it. Yeah, this is who I am trying to describe here. This is Carta the Sea Witch. She is an NPC in Maplestory. She does still exist, actually. You just have to go searching a little bit because it's kind of hard to find her. Yeah, this is who I'm trying to describe. Let's see. Her minimal clothes seemed to amplify her figure. Let's see. Framed by her violet hair, her long violet hair, some dragging on the ground, topped with a large with a sizable black shell for a... Some dragged on the ground. Topped... no, not topped. Let's see. Held in place with a sizable black shell. As her luscious hair holding, there we go. Holding her luscious hair over one of her dark eyes. Ah, what can I do for you? She asked, putting the bottle back and sauntering over to them, brushing the longest part of her hair away from her ear. Strolling, okay. We've come to ask if you know of a cure for the Empress. She's dying, and the destruction of Ledron is somehow connected to her illness. Let's see. Is connected to her illness somehow. Can you help us? Carta smiled as she walked over to Jack and placed her hands on his shoulder, sensuously looking over him and taking in his scent when she doubled over as if someone had hit her. Someone hit her. Jenny looked at Jack, but Jack shook his head as if to say it wasn't his doing. Yes, there is a cure, but it requires you to be the strongest you can. A dark force has invaded Ledron and is slowly taking over it by erasing everything here. You must take this. Come on. Ledron, slowly taking over it by erasing everything here. Ah, okay, there we go. You must take this and mix it with 3 drops of that creature's blood. That creature is known as the Dark Dragon, the polar opposite to Saya. Kill him, and you have a chance of saving Ledron. He should be residing in the mountains north of the palace. Painfully, she handed Olsen a bottle of a black potion, and then collapsed. Akuya ran to her, catching her before she hit the ground as her hat fell away from her head. She stayed panting in Akuya's arms for a moment before she opened her eyes again and looked around. So many young men here. If only once, one would stay for me. Now hurry. The lack of magic from the Empress is being replaced by my own. But I don't know how much longer I can resist the great darkness before my magic runs dry. Hurry! She panted as Akuya set her down, and the 7 began running back, Olsen calling at the top of his lungs for Saya. It wasn't long. Oops, let's see. Let me make sure. There we go. Okay. Making sure you guys can still read it over here. By the way, I should mention that if you guys have any thoughts or comments or questions or anything, feel free to ask. I am not, I do not consider myself to be like the be-all, end-all of authors. No. Far from it. Heck, I would say still I'm like kind of more of a hobbyist at this. But if you have any comments or questions on it, feel free to ask. You know, I am not, or heck, comments or questions about any stories that you guys are writing. By all means, I feel free to. I'm here for conversation, helping along. To help if you guys are stuck on some of your stuff or anything like that. I'd be willing to at least offer another opinion, at the very least. It wasn't long before Saya found them, letting 5 of them on her back as she began flying as fast as she could to the great hills beyond the palace. Over the countless miles they flew. Saya... Okay, let's get rid of this. That was just bleh. Come on, dang it. Deb Nibbit! It wasn't long before, just as they were about to pass the palace, Akuya called out to them. We need to stop at the palace and let the Empress know what... We've... found said cure, Akuya called. No, let's see. We'll get rid of this, because Akuya just said it. I just said that Akuya said something. Jack nodded as he patted Saya's neck, and then quickly landed. Jack jumped off and ran for the Empress's chambers, where he met Nineheart. Jack, have you... There's no time. Take me to the Empress. Quickly. Okay, I see. Let's see. Okay. Nineheart. Okay, quickly, Nineheart led him through the halls and presented the Empress, a young woman with flowing red curls and blazing red eyes, dressed in a breezy light pink dress. Empress, we have found a cure. We're on our way to get the final ingredient for you. We just thought we'd stop and tell you the news since we are on our way. The Empress's eyes became hopeful as she turned to Jack and placed her slender, tiny hand on his. You must have the Dark Dragon's blood, do you not? Jack was surprised. How did she know what they were after? How did you... Time after time, there have been people coming to me saying that that is the cure, but never... Okay. Oops. No, I want this one. Okay. People have come to me saying that this is the cure, but they have never returned. For some unknown reason, my empire of Ledron and my health have been linked to a book. Dismiss, okay. But there is one who has yet to finish the book, since something always stops them. You are the fabled guardians of Osiria. I have faith that you will finish. The Dark Dragon's weak spot is between his shoulders. Now go. My strength is nearing its limit. When you meet him, distract him by speaking of the edge of magic. It will offer you a better explanation of what is happening and a chance to get into position. Jack flew out of the building and back to Saya, who took off with a new urgency towards the Great Hills. Urgency for the Great Hills. But alas, just as they were nearing the noble mountains, they found that they were no more. Instead, they had been replaced by the great darkness. Instead, the great darkness replaced them, where winds, clouds, and lightning ruled with a terrible vengeance, buffeting at the 8 of them with a fury. The 5 riding on Saya did their best to hold on, but were torn from her back and hurled into the dark clouds that waited below. Oh, wait. Okay, we need more italics. So we're going to do that right now. There we go. Because this is Lillian still reading the book right now. Jack, Helen, Olsen, Ozzy, Jenny! Saya called over and over again. Saya called. Okay, we'll just get rid of that. But no answer could be heard. But if they did answer, Saya couldn't hear them. Something brushed against Lillian's leg, making her look away from the book and down at the creature that had crawled up beside her, making her scream. Okay, I'll get... Okay, there we go. Matthew came over and grabbed a hold of the little beast. It looked like a scorpion and a rat had been disassembled and reconnected with bad stitches. With poor stitches. Had been smashed together with poor stitches and left alone to rot or heal. Looks like someone had smashed a scorpion and a rat together with poor stitches and left alone to rot or heal. Okay, there we go. That sounds better. He hurled it into the dark as he reached back and drew the azure banshee sword from... Let's see, come on. As he reached back, drawing the azure banshee sword with a satisfying ring, and met the shadows. But the shadows answered with innumerable eyes. With innumerable eyes. Alden, we need to keep these things away from Lillian. Got it? Alden jumped to his feet. Jumped up and growled. The horn on his head lighting up as fire flared around his feet. Just keep reading, Lily. We've got this. Let's see. Okay, that's what we needed. With a grunt, the 2 of them launched into the creatures and began tearing them to shreds, while Lillian did the best she could to keep reading above the noise. Helen picked herself up from the cold ground and rolled her neck as she listened to it cracking. And then Okay. She listened to it cracking. Then healed. No, not healing, then healed. A sore spot where her neck had been bruised. She looked around and then noticed that her cloak was missing. Looking for it where she had landed, but found nothing except the drab and gray beach. Feeling lost, as if Jack or Olsen had been taken away from her again. Okay. Okay, so actually what we're going to do here, we're just going to go like this. She felt lost. There we go. That works a little better. Saya! Helen called. But no answer came. Everything she had been fighting for here in Ledron had been lost. Come on. Give me the thing. Okay. Helen lost everything she had been fighting for here in Ledron. She had failed to find the Dark Dragon, so the potion would work. And now, everything and everyone in Ledron, come on, Ledron would be lost. She leaned against a rock, grabbing her elbow in disappointment, when the rock twitched. Helen backed away and then came around the front of the rock, seeing that it was Musclestone, whom she and her friends had passed at the beginning of their journey. Okay. Admit.
These hands look strong, but no could keep friends safe. Me fail.
No, it wasn't you who failed. It was I who failed. I couldn't get to the Great Hills.
I tried to keep hold of Mono and Shade, but darkness tear them from hands. Me could no keep them safe. Since me fail, me wait here for great darkness to take me.
But you'll die that way, Helen exclaimed. Musclestone shook his head.
Only thing left for Musclestone, since me fail.
Slowly, he picked up his head and hands, looking over them.
These hands seem strong.
Helen realized that Nothing she said would reach him any longer, and began to wander through the wastelands. She came to a place that seemed to be ruins of an ancient city as the land cracked and heaved, while the great darkness slowly crept in. Her wanderings brought her to a building where what looked to be a picture was covered by a sheet of moss. Or a sheet of moss obscured a mural. There we go. That's better. With a wave of her hand, she burned it away and revealed a painting of the 5 of them when they first began their journey, receiving orders from Nineheart. She moved to the next portion of the wall, which depicted them losing Alden. She moved to the next wall portion, depicting them losing Alden and then talking with Grendel. The next was of them talking to the Seraphim and Ozzy. Each section depicting another leg of their journey, until Helen came to a picture that was dark. To a dark picture, hidden from view by the shadows of the stone overhead. Section. She held her hand out with a flame sitting on it, and fell back as the picture revealed a black dragon with mouth agape, leaping at her and fangs dripping with fangs dripping with spittle. What would you do here, chat? Would you say spittle, saliva, or drool? I like spittle because it sounds a little bit more poetic, I guess. Maybe that's not the right word, but that's kind of what I think of it. But what would you use? Spittle, saliva, or drool? Dripping with drool. Dripping with saliva. Dripping with spittle. Yeah, it's probably saliva that I'm probably looking for. Because spittle is kind of like if you like say a word a little extra hard and it just goes bleh, like all over somebody. She stopped when she heard a hissing growl. Turning around and meeting the muzzle of the beast depicted, baring his fangs and rising. Oh, come on, I hate when it does that. As if he were a serpent ready to strike.
Come closer and I'll kill you,
he growled in a low voice, his forked tongue sweeping from side to side as he bared his fangs even more. Helen backed away when she saw something flitting into her view. Olsen, with a rock for a dagger, and Ozzy with another one leaning against the wall beside him. "Who are you?" Helen asked, trying to buy time for her friends to get into position.
I am the Dark Dragon, and you have the pleasure of being my last meal before this world is torn apart.
Helen braced herself, concentrating her mana as a frosty light shone between her hands. Then try it, she challenged. The dragon's eyes seemed to light up for a moment, momentarily, as more of his body coiled up behind him.
Those are brave words for a single girl. If you are feeling so strong, then stop the darkness.
I can't. Not before I get to the edge of magic, Helen shot back, seeing Jack creep up on top of his lair.
There is no such thing as the edge of magic.
If that rings true, then why is Ledron falling apart? LeBron. No, it's not LeBron. It's Ledron. I definitely wanted Ledron. Helen asked, looking around for something to act as a staff and seeing Ginny take her aim from a good distance away. Take aim from far away.
This land of Ledron was made through magic and lives because of magic. Magic creates endless possibilities, and therefore the illusion that magic has an end is nothing but a hindrance. A check, if you will.
The dragon's eyes flitted here and there, as though becoming agitated about something. So why is Ledron disappearing? Helen called, to bring his attention back to her.
Ledron is a place that exists because people believe in magic. The belief in magic is not limited to this world. All worlds and dimensions affect Ledron.
There, here we go.
People begin to stop believing in magic as they age, thus making the darkness all the stronger.
Then what is the Great Darkness? Helen asked, feeling the presence of Akuya and Jaden behind her.
The Great Darkness is the emptiness that remains from the disbelief in all magic.
Helen was confused as she shifted her mana into lightning. What do you mean by all? Okay. Let's see. We need to do this. There we go. Then we need to do some more italics. There we go.
Magic is not limited to the kind that requires a spell. Love, a new life being born, even a sunrise is all magic. And I will make sure that the Great Darkness swallows all.
But why would you want to destroy that magic?
Because people who have no belief are easy to control. And whoever has that control has all of the power.
The ground under Helen's feet seemed to shudder as the dragon rose even more, and a black aura seeped from under his scales. Helen lost her concentration as she fell to the ground, making her spell shoot in a random direction. When she regained her footing, the dark dragon was just before her, his hot breath blowing her hair back. Who are you really? Who are you really? Jack asked, walking casually out into the open between the dragon and Helen.
I am the servant to the greater power, tearing this world apart. But there is a force that is trying to prevent that from happening. I lost them in the Everglades of Despair. The name of that force is the Guards of Ledron.
Jack pushed Helen back slightly as the dragon recoiled himself. Recoiled slowly, all the muscles in his neck, shoulders, and back tensing, making his scales part from their size. If we're gonna die, then we will die fighting. We're the Guards of Ledron, Jack shouted. The dragon's eyes became wild as his target was making itself available. Made itself available right before his very eyes and claws. With a roar, the dragon charged. Olsen and Ozzy leapt from their hiding spots. Let's see. Pinning his forefeet to the ground, while Jack slammed his fist into the dragon's snout, making its bones break under the pressure. With a sickening crunch. Helen teleported to Jenny, and then Helen teleported Jenny. Let's see. Above the dragon, allowing her to shoot a single arrow. Shoot an arrow into the back of the into its back. It roared in pain as he tried to squirm free, but Jack held his snout shut as the lashings became less and less until he stopped moving. Matthew struggled to keep the horde of creatures that... Oh, this is back in the real world. Matthew struggled to keep... Unmute the stream. It might be more entertaining. Matthew tried to keep the horde of creatures at bay with his Gaia shield, when all at once the creatures disappeared and he fell forward to the ground. What happened? Did they win? He asked. Oh, hold on, let me see what's going on. In all right. Oh, wait, duh. I could have just read it over here. Sorry. He panted. Getting back to his feet. Not yet. They still have a little way to go. Lillian replied, turning her attention back to the book. Returning to the book, okay. Wow, I didn't even have to use my weapon. Akuya said jokingly. The same time. Kuya joked. As Helen retrieved the 3 drops of the dragon's blood, closing the bottle and shaking it. Closed the bottle and shook it up, making it turn a beautiful golden color. Ah, okay. All right. No sooner had the dark dragon been slain than the great darkness was upon them, tearing the world apart and threatening to pull them into the void. Each of them hung onto something, trying to keep from being pulled in. When Saya appeared, grabbing each of them and getting away from the void. I'm hard of hearing, so the amount of focus I need to put on a stream means it is the only thing happening, since I'm focusing so hard on listening to it. Okay. Looks like you're chugging away at the edits, though, so congrats on the progress. I think I'm down to the last 4 pages. 4-ish pages. Okay. All right. And Sai appeared, grabbing each of them and getting away from the void. Despite their efforts to keep Ledron from being torn apart, nothing was left despite their efforts to keep Ledron from being torn apart. Only large chunks of land remained in the once great nation. Saya, do you see anything? Jenny asked. Sadly, Saya shook her head as she looked around, opening her mouth where their Gaia cloaks hung from her teeth, flying back to them and allowing them to put them back on. I found these while I was looking for you, she said. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Here. There we go. She said as they flew aimlessly through empty space. Let's see. Through space. Everyone felt the loss of Ledron as if it were their own as if it were their land. When Olsen had an idea. Maybe the Gaias can lead us back to the palace if it still stands. Olsen reached back for his Gaia and then held it out before him. Gaia of red, please show us the way back to the palace if it's still there. For a moment, nothing happened until the Gaia leaped out of his hands. Transforming into a fiery bird that flew before them. For a while. There we go. That sounds a little... Nothing happened. Until the Gaia... Okay, there we go. After it, Saya! Olsen called. as they dove and weaved between rocks and land masses, following the bird until they came to the palace that shone like the brightest of stars against the blackness all around them. There it is! Saya, hurry! The cloak lost its form and landed in Olsen's lap while they hurriedly went to the palace and skidded to a stop. Saya's claws sparked off the marble floor while the entire group leapt off of her back and ran inside the palace to the waiting Neinhardt. No time! Empress, now! Olsen commanded. Again, Neinhardt led them through the hallways, but time was not on their side as portions of the landmass the palace stood on began to crumble. Portions of the palace's landmass began to crumble, making the palace shake, making it shake and jar. We need to hurry. The Empress is losing her strength, Neinhardt called. As Olsen took the potion and began sprinting through the halls, almost instinctively knowing where he needed to go. He burst through the doors of her chamber where she lay. Her breathing labored. Her breathing was labored as she tried to hang on to the last strain of life in her. Olsen landed by her bed, popped the cap off, and poured the potion into the Empress's mouth. Just as the others caught up, the Empress fell silent, leaving them stunned as the palace began to shake more violently. We were so close, and yet... But Ozzy didn't want to finish the sentence, while all of them bowed their heads as the palace walls first groaned and then cracked. Groaned and cracked. Without warning, the Empress's eyes flew open. She rose to her feet and held her arms wide. A powerful wave of magic ripped through the emptiness and in a matter of moments restored Ledron to its former glory, perhaps even beyond what it was before. The Empress seemed to have new life breathed into her as she floated down, power overflowing from her skin and radiating from her as a golden light. Thank you for helping me. Even though some people are losing their belief in magic, the potion you gave helps to amplify the feelings of those who still do, and gives me that power to keep Ledron alive. She stepped off the bed with Olsen's help and walked over to the rest of them, placing her hands on Jenny's and Helen's shoulders, looking around at them and smiling brightly. Your work is done. And the spell of the book and the book's spell on my world is the spell of the book. Okay, I see. The book spell connected to my world is broken. Okay. We'll dismiss that. And we'll dismiss that. But before this story ends, Okay, so a little more of that. Okay, good. But before this story ends, Lillian, thank you for persevering through the tears and the pain and finishing the tale. I will send you all back to the world you call home. Helen hugged her tightly, feeling like she had known the Empress for far longer than just a few hours. Will we ever see you again? Jenny asked. The Empress shrugged and smiled. I don't know. But if you ever find the means, please visit us in Ledron. All of them began to glow as they were as the Empress's spell wove over them, sending them back to Syria. Wait, what's your name? Olson called just as he was disappearing. Elglaine. Empress Elglaine of Ledron. And with that, the group disappeared. For many centuries after, the tale of the guards of Ledron was told. The people of Ledron told the tale of the guards of Ledron many times over, passed on from empress to emperor through the ages. Passed on from emperor to emperor through the ages. Many more adventures awaited the people of Ledron. But those are for another time. Alright, so then we go like this. Alright. Lillian sighed as she sat up and closed the book, while Matthew set his gauntlet on her shoulder. Wow, you're one tough girl. Thanks for reading it all, he said with a sigh. Lillian was about to respond when a light shone in the room and the others appeared from it. Jenny ran for Alden with tears of thankfulness as everyone introduced each other to Ozzy, Akuya, and Jaden. Okay, there we go. How are you guys alive? We saw you die, Jenny said as she continued to hold Alden close. Looking up at Matthew. Well, in the story you might die, but that is your way out if you don't finish the story yourself as a character, Matthew laughed. How'd you find that out? Helen asked. Trying to figure it out as her staff appeared in her hand once again. Appeared in her hand. I don't know. Some voice came to me as I was coming back here, Matthew laughed. Guys, look, Lillian called, pointing to the book as it slowly disappeared in a cloud of golden dust. Slowly disappeared into a cloud of golden dust. None of them could find out why the book and Ledron were connected. But for hours, they talked about their adventure. They boarded the ship. They boarded the tickets ship. They boarded the ship where their friends, the tickets, waited for them and took off back to Earptown. There, they relived their adventure for the young ones that There, they relived their adventures for the young ones who always crowded around them and begged them to tell them about their outing. Crowded around them, begging for tales of their adventures. Very good, Wiz. Thank you for your cooperation, Eleanor said as the mage's crystal ball went dark.
It was my pleasure. Anything to write the books of the library. Anything to write the library's books. Those books are my life.
Wiz smiled as he pushed up his glasses and held out his hands. The black mage placed a book. No, the black mage gave him a book made from the Guardian's little adventure in his hands. Wiz greedily looked it over as he walked out of the room, while Eleanor picked her weight off the wall and walked over to the mage with a heavy, hip-swinging gait. And what exactly was the purpose of that? If you had wanted to, you could have destroyed Ledron, Eleanor asked, as the black mage sat down, only to be met with whispers of indifference. A distortion in ludibrium? Why would that affect the Oblivion Gauntlet? Eleanor asked, but received no answer as the mage simply stared off into the distance. As the mage stared into the distance. Do the Seraphim pose any threat to you? And what of the 9 Spirits Dragon? Even if you were the one that sent them to Ledron in the first place, they have now returned and will no doubt become allies to the Guardians. The mage narrowed his eyes to Eleanor's comment, breathing a whisper deep in his throat. Eleanor stood next to the window overlooking Edelstein. Stood beside the window overlooking Edelstein when she felt the mage's hands around her waist. This time, it didn't have the same effect as it used to. No longer did she subconsciously move and allow the mage access to her neck as he would gently kiss it, nor did she get chills when he touched her arm. But yet, she couldn't figure out why. She couldn't figure out why the things he did no longer had any effect on her. Just outside the room, Dragon sat listening to their conversation, deep in thought. So they do still live. So they do still live. I need to talk to them and find out if she is still alive. Okay, let's get all the way to the bottom here, he thought, turning around and heading back to his quarters, taking the heavy sword from his shoulders and relaxing on his bed, only to fall asleep and dream. All right, well, that is the end of that. I will have to go back through and look it over, see if there's any other mistakes.